Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I have another video for you guys from Swagkage. This one talking about how strong is Itachi. Now we did watch another video from Seth the Programmer talking about Itachi's strength and how he's actually a lot stronger than a lot of people give him credit for. So we're going to be watching this video from Swagkage and we'll see if they share some of the same points or if maybe Swag has a different view as to how strong Itachi actually is. So we're going to be watching this video, but before we do, I have to let you know that, as always, link to the video and link to the channel in the description box down below. So go check him out to support Swag and his content, and do that with all of the other content creators that we watch here on this channel. Don't just watch my video, watching their videos. And also, considering when you're going to see this, I do want to wish a Merry Christmas if you do celebrate that. If you don't, then you know what, I just hope you're having a good day. With that being said, let's go ahead and watch the video.
So I've been making a bunch of videos recently examining the strength of various Naruto characters, and I figured it'd be fun to make a new video about somebody who's way more popular and also way more powerful than anyone I've spoken about so far. Today we're taking a look at Itachi Uchiha, and I know everybody knows he's supposed to be like really strong, but I think where everyone struggles to agree is on exactly how strong. I've spoken to some people who think Itachi could beat Madara, I've spoken to others who think he'd struggle to fight Jiraiya, and there are a whole bunch of opinions spread throughout in between. I of course have my own opinion, and to back it up we're going to be examining a variety of different sources, including the...
If I'm being honest, I don't think he can beat Madara. Like, Itachi's strong, but Madara's just, I think he's way above him.
Fights Itachi participates in, statements about him throughout the series, flashback scenes where he does anything noteworthy, and the two light novels covering the events of his life before he deserts the Leaf Village. I think I'm going to start with the light novels because I know a lot of you haven't read them, and they do give you quite a bit of insight into how talented Itachi is and the sort of crazy stuff he's been capable of even since his early childhood. I want to focus specifically on the first of the two books because you learn a lot more about what Itachi can do in it than you do in the second one. Not to say that you don't get to see Itachi in action in the Book of Midnight, but it covers Itachi's time in the Anbu and the assassination of the Uchiha clan, which we already sort of know about, whereas the Book of Daylight covers Itachi's early childhood.
Yeah, here's the thing. If you have not read them, I do recommend you read them because they do give you a lot of insight into Itachi that I think the anime did actually do like a filler arc where they kind of adapt to the novels. But I would still recommend you go read the novels because one thing that the anime sometimes does is that they'll change things from the novels. Like, for example, in Shippuden, after the 4th Grade Ninja War ended, they adapted the Sasuke Shinden novel. I think it was Sasuke Sunrise. And while they do largely cover what happens in the novel, they did change some things, especially the ending. Like, for example, the ending to the Sasuke novel actually hints at Momoshiki and Kinshiki, but the anime actually completely leaves that out. So that's why I say I would recommend if you have a chance to read them, I would recommend you actually read them.
We get to see him enroll in the academy, start life as a genin, take the Chunin exams, and other things you may expect from a kid in the Naruto world. Now, for those of you who haven't read the light novels yet, prepare to have your fucking socks knocked off, because Itachi's no joke, even as a little kid. One example of some of the ridiculous things that he has done can be seen on page 28 when the Nine Tails is attacking Konoha. Itachi's with his mother Mikoto and his younger brother Sasuke, who was an infant at the time. Everybody's just sitting around, all scared, not sure what to do because they're worried the Nine Tails is gonna eat everyone, when all of a sudden a big chunk of debris falls out of the sky and threatens to crush Mikoto and Sasuke. Without a moment's hesitation, Itachi jumps into the air and breaks the debris apart with his bare fist. The way the book describes it, it sounds like he's amping his strength with chakra control, the same way that Sakura and Tsunade do. Obviously not to the same extent, but still, the fact that he's able to do this at all at 5 years old, before even enrolling in the Ninja Academy, is crazy.
Yeah, see, again, so for anyone who is still confused as to how the characters in Naruto can do what they do, this is how they do it. They lace chakra into their bodies and use it to enhance their physical abilities. That's why characters like Hashirama, characters like Naruto, and characters like Sakura, well, Sakura and Tsunade are kind of a different case, but let's take Naruto and Hashirama for example. The reason why they can do all of these crazy things is because they have insanely high chakra reserves. And that's why they can usually fight for a lot longer, and why they have a lot of stamina. But when it comes to characters like Tsunade and Sakura, the reason why they can do the kind of crazy feats that they can do, like smashing entire chunks of the ground and basically destroying entire walls like they were nothing, is because, well, it's not that they don't have large chakra reserves, it's because they have insanely accurate chakra control. So there's a bit of a difference between the two, even though they both kind of use the same principle.
I find this particularly interesting because we don't really see a lot of people, especially not Genin, double especially not academy students, and triple especially people who haven't even enrolled in the academy yet, make use of the ability to use chakra to reinforce their strikes. Two of the only people we ever really see do it at all are Sakura and Tsunade, and you can argue that towards the end of the series, everyone is using chakra to make their attacks more powerful. But as it's described in the book, Itachi is doing specifically what Sakura and Tsunade do, and that's explained to require really precise chakra control. Now, I don't want to give him more credit than he deserves, so that might not be exactly what he's doing, and even if it is, it might not be nearly as impressive as I think it is, but I did want to mention it just because of how much it stuck out to me. Anyway, his Jonin mother is shocked to see this happen in front of her. In the exact words of the book, unable to conceal her surprise, his mother stared at Itachi with saucer-like eyes. His mother was a Jonin, which was precisely why she was amazed at his instantaneous action. I think the implication here is supposed to be that she's stunned by the fact that even though she was a Jonin, she wasn't able to do anything, whereas her 5-year-old son, who completely lacked ninja training, was able to deal with the situation without trouble at all. Now, to be fair, she had her back turned to the debris when it started falling towards her, but I think that's a much less severe handicap than being 5 years old and lacking ninja training. Moving on page 38, we learn that a 6-year-old Itachi, on his first day at the academy, blows everybody away with his performance in a training exercise held as a part of class that day. So the exercise has the students run around the schoolyard and see how quickly they can throw kunai at the 20 targets scattered throughout it. It takes most of the students about 5 minutes to do this, but Itachi pulls it off in 30 seconds. What makes that even better is Itachi got really mad at himself after completing the course because he thought he could have done way better. Like, as soon as the person scheduled to go after him begins the course, he takes another look at it and he goes, "Ah, man, I could have shaved 5 seconds off of my time. I suck." And when he already clearly outperformed everybody else, the fact that he expected himself to do better is ridiculous, and it also means he probably could have. Even his teacher, after watching this happen, is so shocked that he initially forgets to call the name of the next student. Apparently, stuff like this continued to happen during Itachi's enrollment at the academy, because on page 45, we learn that just 4 months after he began classes there, Itachi was given the graduation exam. Surprise, surprise, he passes it, and he's allowed to graduate the following year. Later in the book, after Itachi becomes a genin, during an encounter with Obito on page 81, we see him resist the effects of Obito's genjutsu. Now, this is only important because with him were 2 members of the Guardian Shinobi 12, a Jonin, and 2 genin, one of whom was a genjutsu specialist. The Guardian Shinobi 12, the Jonin, and one of the genin are all caught in this genjutsu, and the only people who are able to resist its effects are Itachi and his genjutsu specialist teammate. And for those of you who are prepared to say, "Oh man, that's not a surprise, Itachi's always been really good at genjutsu," at this point in the book, it's not really implied that Itachi can use genjutsu that well. As a matter of fact, when this fight happened, Itachi hadn't even awakened the Sharingan yet. It's actually the death of his teammate that happens during this fight that prompts Itachi's Sharingan to manifest for the first time. The only reason I'm clarifying is because that means an 8-year-old Itachi, without the aid of the Sharingan, was able to resist the effects of a genjutsu that caught 2 of the Guardian Shinobi 12 and a Jonin. No matter how you slice it, I think that sounds pretty impressive, but maybe that's just me. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is, without question, the most ridiculous thing that he accomplishes in the entire book. So the book informs us that Itachi continues to do really well in missions and is basically backpacking his team, but despite that, his Jonin just keeps refusing to recommend him for the tuning exams. The reason appears to be that he's confident in Itachi's abilities, but not in the abilities of his 2 teammates. So to circumvent this, Danzo, yes, as in the leader of Root and the Foundation, Danzo, personally requests that the then 9-year-old Itachi be allowed to take the tuning exams by himself. Itachi's father, Fugaku, agrees with the suggestion, so Itachi goes on to ace the written exam. He actually gets the 2nd highest score of all time, next only to Minato's, before setting a record for the time taken to get to the tower in the center of the Forest of Death with both a Heaven and Earth scroll in his possession. Now, the interesting thing about this, of course, is that the previous record had been set by a team of 3 people, and all of Itachi's enemies...
Itachi managed to do it on his own.
In the Forest of Death were working as part of 3-man teams. Yet Itachi entered the tuning exams by himself at 9 years old and still set this record anyway. As you'd expect, this of course means that he had to fight a team of 3 people, beat them, and take their scroll, which is exactly what he did. On his way to the tower, he gets jumped by a team of 3 Mist Ninja and deals with them absolutely no problem. Then after clearing the Forest of Death, Itachi performs so well in the first round of the tuning exam tournament that he's allowed to skip the rest of the bracket and is immediately promoted to tuning. It goes without saying that this is really dumb. Like, it sounds like I'm fucking making it up, but I promise you this is actually what happened.
Oh man, you see, I get what he's going. I get what he's trying to say. It does kind of sound a bit stupid. In fact, if you think about it, it's kind of encroaching into fan fiction territory. But no, that is what happened. He was just that talented.
The book. Itachi's just ridiculous. And what makes this even better is the book says that only 5 months after his promotion to Chunin, due to his incredible performance during his time as a Chunin, he was then promoted again to a member of the Anbu Black Ops. Some other notable things that Itachi accomplishes before his debut in Part 1 include being handpicked for the extermination of the Uchiha clan, overpowering Orochimaru when the latter tries to steal his body, and basically toying with Deidara while recruiting him to join the Akatsuki. He does all of this during his early to mid-teens at the latest, since when he leaves the Leaf Village to join.
Also, I just want to say something real quick. I remember hearing someone say that, you know, I think it was in one of my comments, in the comments of one of my videos, where Itachi did this when he was like, what, he was like 12 or something. That's actually not true. I think he was like 14 or 15 or 16, somewhere in that. But no, he wasn't 12, because remember, when he massacred the clan, he was like 14 years old. He was 14 when that happened, and we don't exactly know when exactly this takes place, but I think this is probably like when he's like 15 or 16. Basically the same age that Sasuke was when he basically turned on Orochimaru, which, if you think about it, does kind of suck for him that both Uchiha brothers turned on him when they were like 15 or 16. It's kind of ironic.
Toying with Deidara while recruiting him to join the Akatsuki.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still I get what they were trying to say. It's still ridiculous that he's capable of basically completely shitting on a Sannin when they were only just like teenagers.
He does all of this during his early to mid-teens at the latest, since,
although to be fair, Orochimaru wasn't really 100% healthy, and he was still weakened by the third Hokage when Sasuke fought him. Hell, even Sasuke himself acknowledges this later on. So I guess not an exact comparison, because I mean, when Itachi well, we say fought him, he didn't exactly fight him. He just completely told him off and said, listen, you want to try this again, go ahead, but you already saw what happened. The thing is, we don't know if Orochimaru was also, like, was he still the same as when he was trying to get Sasuke's body, like when he was still doing the whole jumping from one body to the next, and maybe at that point he he wasn't 100%, like he wasn't at 100%, and that maybe that's why he was trying so desperately to get Itachi's body, because he also wanted the Sharingan. I don't know, I just think it's an interesting discussion to have.
When he leaves the Leaf Village to join the Akatsuki, he's only 13 years old. Another thing worth mentioning is that both Orochimaru and Deidara were either shown or stated to be Kage level at some point. Orochimaru was a candidate to become the 4th Hokage and later went on to kill the 3rd Hokage, and Deidara successfully defeated and captured the 5th Kazekage Gaara. Of course, Deidara was probably way stronger when he fought Gaara than when he fought Itachi, but Orochimaru had been nominated to become Hokage long before he lost to Itachi. Now, I think that covers all of his off-screen background, so let's move on to the stuff that we actually get to see him do. The first major fight that he participates in is against a team of Kakashi, Kurenai, and Asuma, and it gives us a surface-level glimpse into his arsenal and the skill that he possesses in various areas of combat. We learned that he's at least a little proficient with Genjutsu, given how he completely resists the effects of the one that Kurenai tries to cast on him, and that he subsequently turns the tables on her and traps her in a Genjutsu instead. We also get to see him use a couple different ninjutsu, including a water-style jutsu that never receives a name, and a variant of the Shadow Clone Jutsu, where the clone created by the user detonates on command. The most iconic scene from the fight, of course, is the debut of Tsukuyomi, a Genjutsu so powerful that despite the fact that it was first shown near the beginning of the series, it's still considered one of the strongest Genjutsu ever after the series conclusion. Now,
I'm pretty sure it's still considered to be unblockable. Like, you cannot block against the Tsukuyomi unless, I mean, I guess unless you, let's say, have the Rinnegan. And that, because the Rinnegan is known for allowing its user to, like, defend against, you know, high-level Genjutsu. So maybe the Rinnegan could do it. But at the same time, I know some people might say, well, Nagato had the Rinnegan, and he couldn't resist Jiraiya's Genjutsu. Well, you also got to remember, the Rinnegan was never Nagato's to begin with. So Nagato, you could say, never had access to the full, you know, like, full abilities of the Rinnegan. Because you see, the Rinnegan was originally belonged to Madara. He's the one who awoke it and then gave it to Nagato. So yeah, I don't really count Nagato as like a counter to that statement. I don't know. It is an interesting, again, another topic that I think we can talk about, but I think it's kind of heavily implied that it's unblockable. Like you cannot block against the Tsukuyomi unless maybe you have like the Rinnegan or at the very least the Mangekyo Sharingan.
All that said, the fight's pretty short, and it's hard to infer from it what Itachi's full power is. But considering his opponents, his performance, and the apparent lack of effort on his part make it very clear that he's far beyond Jonin level. Itachi's next fight isn't really important at all.
Sorry, I just noticed this real quick. Just wanted to bring this up. So this is after Itachi uses Tsukuyomi. You can see like a small bead of sweat right here. Now this is actually a nice touch by Kishimoto because it goes on to, yeah, you can see it clearly here. It goes on to show you that abilities like, you know, Mangekyo abilities like the Tsukuyomi or the Matarasu use up a lot of chakra. But more importantly, it showcases a weakness of the Sharingan, which is it severely and quickly drains the user's stamina. And that's why you could say Hagoromo was like the perfect shinobi because he had, you know, the ocular powers of the Rinnegan, but he also had a body that allowed him to basically keep using it for long amounts of time, or long periods of time, excuse me. And that's why I think you could say that, you know, Naruto and Sasuke make such a perfect combo because you have Sasuke who represents the mental side and Naruto who represents the physical side, and both of them working together. I think it was stated in the Boruto novel where when Momoshiki was fighting them together, it didn't feel like he was fighting two shinobi at once. It felt like he was fighting a completely different person. And that's why I think Hagoromo said it's when, you know, both sides choose to work together that, you know, you get the most, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, that's not what he exactly said, I know, but it's basically when both sides work together, you get the most optimal outcome. You know, you get the best outcome if you choose to work together. And that's something that Kishimoto kind of foreshadowed all the way in the Chunin exams, where one of the things that was taught to Team 7 when they reached the tower in the middle of the Forest of Death is that, you know, a shinobi has to train both the mental and the physical. Like, you can't focus on one and ignore the other. Like, you need to work both. You need to focus on both of them and find a good balance.
Beyond Jonin level. Itachi's next fight isn't really important at all. It's just him beating the shit out of Sasuke, but we do get our first glimpse at a...
And it gave birth to that meme that's really starting to annoy me. The whole thing where he's holding him to the wall, and then people just exchange it with other things, and it's just... It got annoying after a while.
Matarasu here. Unfortunately, we don't learn anything about how it works, but we can see that it's enough to impress Jiraiya and that it eats through the insides of the toad that he summons. Something that gets brought up frequently is that Jiraiya allegedly forced both Itachi and Kisame to retreat here, but after taking one look at this manga page, it becomes clear that they didn't really have to go anywhere. Kisame is pretty confused as to why Itachi chose to leave, and furthermore, it's very likely that he just didn't want to engage Jiraiya because he was working undercover for the Leaf Village. The idea that base Jiraiya is too strong for both Itachi and Kisame to handle is a bit ridiculous too, especially considering some of the stuff we see them do later in Shippuden. Speaking of...
Yeah, see, again, this is where a lot of confusion resides within the fandom because they look at what happens in part 1 and then they think, well, that's kind of Kishimoto saying that Jiraiya was too strong for both of them, even though later on in Shippuden we see them performing feats that would clearly state that they could take this guy on. But I think, you know, with what we know about Itachi afterwards, I think it's kind of more clear as to why he chose to leave, is because you know, like he never wanted to actually hurt Sasuke. He never wanted to actually capture the Nine Tails because that would help out the Akatsuki, and that's not his mission. His mission is to spy on the Akatsuki. And I think it's revealed later on. Obito reveals that the reason why he showed up in the Leaf Village was because he wanted to check on Sasuke and see if he was okay. So yeah, but based on what we know about them later on, yeah, I don't think Jiraiya would have been too much for them. I think he would have definitely been a challenge, but no, I don't think. I think Itachi would have been able to actually fight him. Now, whether he could win is a debate. But if it's Itachi and Kisame working together, I think that even Jiraiya, as strong as he is, and I know this might be a bit controversial, but Jiraiya, as strong as he is, I don't know if he would have been able to make it out, you know, alive.
of Shippuden, and after this fight, we don't get to see Itachi in action until its first arc. To hold Team Kakashi at bay while the Akatsuki seals Shukaku inside of the Ghetto statue, Itachi challenges the members of Team 7 with a clone containing 30% of his chakra. Even though the clone is obviously substantially weaker than Itachi, it takes the combined forces of Naruto and Kakashi to land a clean hit on it. More importantly, though, during this fight, we learn that Itachi can trap people in genjutsu simply with a point of his finger. He doesn't even need to establish eye contact. The last fight Itachi partakes in before his death is against Sasuke, and this is one of the most popular fights in the series. I'm pretty sure many of you have seen it a bunch of times, so I don't think I need to spend too much time going over it. But what's noteworthy about this fight is, as many of you know, Itachi was basically blind and was also near death due to his sickness, and according to Obito, he still could have easily killed Sasuke had he been trying his hardest. This is the same Sasuke who defeated Deidara without much trouble, at least not much trouble if we're not counting his suicide bomb at the end. So considering the gigantic strength disparity between Itachi and Deidara that this indicates, it means that he's obviously way beyond Kage level and paints him as one of the strongest members of the Akatsuki. During this fight, we also get to see him use the Susanoo for the first time, and we learn that his Susanoo possesses the Yata Mirror, which can reflect all forms of physical attacks, and the Totsuka Blade, which can indefinitely seal anything it pierces. Now, when Itachi is revived by Kabuto during the 4th Shinobi World War, that's when we actually get to see him put in some effort. It's brief because it only happens during the fight against Naruto and B, and then subsequently during the fight against Nagato, but it's still really cool that we get to see him cut loose for once. He doesn't do too much in this fight, or these fights. I'm not really sure if this counts as 1 or 2 since he changes teams. But anyway, what he does do is pretty major. At the beginning of the fight, he swaps hands with Kyuubi Cloak Naruto, which is a really big deal because right before this fight, we find out that this Naruto is faster than the Raikage. Of course, it's possible that Naruto wasn't moving at full speed when this happened. In fact, it's very likely. But keeping up at all with someone who was at that point one of the fastest characters in the series is definitely worthy of praise. Later in the fight, when he switches sides and helps Naruto and B fight against Nagato, he basically carries both of them. The two
Yeah, see, this is, again, in my opinion, is one of the biggest testaments to, or one of the biggest examples for just how strong he actually is. A lot of people acknowledge that if Itachi didn't break out of the control of the reanimation jutsu, the Edo Tensei, like Naruto and B were basically screwed. Like, there was nothing they could do when Nagato had both of them. Naruto was about to have his soul ripped out, and B was just, like, as strong as he is, like, Nagato had him pinned down. Like, there was nothing he could do. And if Itachi hadn't showed up, like, it would have been game over. Obito would have the 9 tails, he would have the 8 tails, the 10 tails would be brought back, he'd become the 10 tails Jinchuriki. I don't think Obito would have even, or excuse me, not Obito, but Kabuto would have even needed to revive Madara using Edo Tensei. It's just, again, I always like watching videos like this because it, once again, just, even though you knew this, you are basically reminded again as to just how strong certain characters actually are.
We're seconds away from death when Itachi swoops in and saves them with his Susanoo, and he's the one who ends up dealing the finishing blow to Nagato by sealing him with the Totsuka Blade. Itachi's last fight is against Kabuto with Sasuke at his side, but it's difficult to gauge his strength from this because both he and Kabuto were holding back. Kabuto had to hold back because he didn't want to kill Sasuke, and Itachi had to hold back because he couldn't afford to kill or seal Kabuto, as that would leave no one to release the Edo Tensei. To be fair, of course, there's not much that Itachi could have done to beat Kabuto, but a single...
You know, actually, I just realized something. Or actually, no, you know what? No, never mind. Because what I was going to say is that, you know, afterwards Suigetsu and Jugo show up and they basically show up with the scroll that teaches them how to use the reanimation jutsu. And I was thinking, okay, well, now that they have that, they can undo the reanimation, but not necessarily, because I think it's kind of implied that the person who casts it has to be the one to undo it. So yeah, it wouldn't have worked out anyway. It was just, so never mind.
Poke from the Totsuka Blade would have gotten him the win, and whether or not he actually could have touched Kabuto with the Totsuka Blade is arguable, but like I said, given the circumstances, it's difficult to tell. Still, even though both he and Kabuto were holding back, he managed to catch Kabuto with Izanami, allowing him to release the Edo Tensei and nearly end the war. So now that everything's on the table, it's time to answer the question posed in the title of the video. How strong do I think Itachi is? To be blunt, I think he's one of the strongest characters in the series, but that's not super precise, so let me be more clear. Itachi is one of the most skilled users of both ninjutsu and genjutsu, and he has incredible skill with taijutsu as seen in his brief clash with QB Naruto. His arsenal is made up of some of the most overpowered broken shit in the Naruto-verse, including exploding shadow clones, genjutsu that can be cast with the point of a finger, Tsukuyomi, a Matarasu, the strongest fire-style jutsu of all time, and a Susanoo that wields an indestructible shield and a sword that can seal anything it touches. He has so many methods of dealing with potential threats that it's really unlikely that he'll ever find himself in a situation he can't get himself out of. But he's the definition of a glass cannon. His main weakness is his complete lack of stamina.
Exactly.
So while he's easily able to deal with most of the opponents that might cross his path, if he's unable to do it quickly, he runs the risk of draining himself of chakra and tiring himself out. It's not a huge weakness though, since he's shown he's more than capable of taking opponents out quickly, and if we're talking about Edo Tensei Itachi, it's not even present in the first place. If I had to explain how strong I think he is by comparing him to other characters, I'd say he's the third strongest member in the Akatsuki, and if he were to become Hokage, I think he'd be the fourth most powerful behind Naruto, of course, Hashirama, and Minato. I think he's weaker than Obito just because Kamui's broken, and he's definitely weaker than Nagato, and I mean, you could maybe argue that he might be able to beat the Six Paths of Pain in his prime. In my personal opinion, I think that the Six Paths would overwhelm him because someone with low stamina like Itachi just isn't built to take someone like that on. But that's a can of worms I don't really feel like opening. I don't feel like going super into detail about the topic, but I did want to put my position out there. I definitely don't think he's anywhere close to as strong as Madara. He has an insane amount of versatility, and the Totsuka Blade Yata Mirror combination is very powerful, but Madara is a completely different beast, and maybe I'll make a video covering him at some point in the future. Speaking of that, if you guys want me to make this into a more recurring series where I discuss the strength of other characters, let me know in the comments because I had a lot of fun making this video as well as the others. Make sure you also let me know who else you want to see a video on, and if I see enough support for any given character, I'll definitely make sure to cover them. Anyway, thanks as always for watching the video all the way to the end. If you're new here, consider subscribing to get updates when I post new videos. Make sure you have a great rest of the day, and until my next video, I'll talk to you later. Swagkage out. Bye.
Okay, I think that's the end. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so there's the video, and probably the most important point that he made in regards to Itachi, right there at the end, is that even though, he can do all of these things, and he is definitely no joke, the problem is, like he said, his complete lack of stamina, and it's one of the reasons why he, and I've heard other people mention this, and I do agree with them, is that he always prioritizes ending a fight as quickly as he possibly can, because he knows that he's not someone who can engage in a fight that lasts for a lot longer. And that's why I think characters like Madara and even Sasuke later on have over him, is that both of those characters can fight for a lot longer, even though they're utilizing, ocular abilities. They have the stamina to actually allow them to fight for longer periods of time. Which does kind of suck for Itachi, because when you're strong enough to be able to keep up with someone like, KCM Naruto, who at the time was one of the fastest characters in the series, the problem is that if the fight lasts for, let's say, more than 10 minutes, then you're basically screwed if you're someone who can't keep up a fight for that long. And that's, again, one of the things that works against Itachi, and why it would be difficult for him to fight against someone like Pain, the Six Paths of Pain, because it would take a long time to be able to deal with those kinds of characters, especially considering that kind of a character, especially when you consider some of the broken abilities that they have, the Diva Path, the Animal Path, the Preta Path, the Outer Path, and the Human Path, the Naraka Path. All of these abilities are incredibly broken when you really think of them, and for someone like Itachi, who, like I said, can't fight for very long, it would take him a while to be able to deal with all of them. And I think it would be incredibly difficult. Now, if we're talking Edo Itachi, where he doesn't have that problem, then it becomes a different conversation, because he doesn't have the stamina problem, he doesn't have the chakra problem. So, again, then you could maybe make the argument that he could basically take out, let's say, the Paths of Pain, and Nagato. I guess it depends. With that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and again, let me just say, considering when you're going to watch this, Merry Christmas if you're someone who definitely celebrates that, and if you don't celebrate Christmas, then you know what, I just hope you still have a good day. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching again. Link to the video and the channel, again, in the description box down below. Go subscribe to Swagkage, go watch his content, go support him, not just my video or other content creators' videos where we watch his videos and other content creators' videos. And also leave a comment letting me know your thoughts about what we saw here in this video. With all that out of the way, I hope to talk to you soon. Bye for now.